He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi great. This show has focused on so many amazing people over the last, I think we've done 130 of these shows. And today is going to be no exception to that. I've got the former governor of the state of Mississippi, Governor Phil Bryant, with me this morning. Governor, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Ricky. Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's great to have you. We're gonna talk a little bit about the situation that America is going through today. In the first segment, we can't avoid that conversation. The pain that America is feeling today is something we need to acknowledge. In the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about, looking back on your governorship. What do you miss? What are you up to these days? And then I want to shift gears and talk about this wonderful state and the pandemic situation and how I'll talk about it every show, about the competitive advantage that Mississippi has to bring visitors in here who like driving, because drive-in is a really important part of the sector of Mississippi tourism that we need to focus on. And I should also mention that there's a little trouble brewing down in the tropics right now off the Yucatan coast, and most of the models say whatever it is will come up to the northern Gulf Coast. Typically, you're dealing with a tropical storm with a lot of rain on the east side. That's what usually happens this time of year, but you never know. So my point to folks who are listening, just get your hurricane preparedness plan out and just make sure you're prepared and watch the weather and see how this thing unfolds. Governor, so here we are. The vast majority of demonstrations across America are peaceful, but unfortunately some are not, and there are a lot of reasons for that. I think some are fringe groups that have infiltrated some of these protests and creating sort of an anarchist scenario. We'll know more once they get in and start to really do the investigations to see who and what is behind it. But at the core of this, America is in pain right now. What are your thoughts about the situation?
Well, I think it all starts with Mr. George Floyd and what happened that day as a former law enforcement officer, realizing how the command and control broke down at that scene. I don't want to just say that it's all based on what happened that moment, but that was the spark, I think, that lit this fire. And I don't understand how a human being could be involved in a situation where another human being is literally begging for his life and ignore that. In protocol, you've got a handcuffed suspect. He's under control. If you need to put a hand on the shoulder, that's fine. But what he was doing there was life-threatening and obviously took Mr. Floyd's life. But the other officers, you're trained to intervene. You're trained to step up and say, hey, move back, let me handle this. You go to the patrol car, call this in, take a break, whatever you need to do. But you know that when one officer loses it or when one officer is doing something he shouldn't be doing in a situation like that, you intervene. So it broke down from that moment. But that was just heartbreaking. It still is. I saw his brother this morning, Mr. Floyd's brother this morning, saying this is not what George wants to be remembered by. He was a gentle giant, his brother said, who had strong faith, and would be heartbroken, I think, seeing some of the violence. And you're absolutely right. Peaceful protesting was what was taking place this weekend on Highway 90 in Biloxi, near the Wade-In location. Signs being held, people honking horns, giving them thumbs up. I actually ran through there. I was on the coast this weekend, had a wonderful run along the beach, which is gorgeous. But I just noticed the difference. There was no anger. There was no throwing of anything. People were staying safely out of the road, but they were protesting. They were exercising their right to say, we have problems in our communities. And this is an example of what happens when those problems manifest themselves. So I'm very proud of what we're doing here in Mississippi. I'm heartbroken to see the anarchists that have taken over the peaceful demonstrations that could have been beneficial. But in Antiva, the violence you see perpetrated against small business owners, I saw a young lady standing in front of her business that was hit by what looked like a board and being beaten by a number of grown men. It's just horrible. And somewhere, as we talk about, we all got to come together. We all should have come together 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. In the manifestation of what has happened in America for the last 20 years, I think, is now what you see in our cities, along with anarchists who would do this at every opportunity. So there's a lot of work to be done in this country, and it's got to start today.
Yeah, it's super complicated. Just to remind folks who may not remember, you were a law enforcement officer at one time in your life. I was a paramedic, so I'd been in the environment many times. I said to an African-American friend of mine, a guy I'm super close to, and we had a very long conversation this morning. And during the conversation, I just said, man, if I'd have been there with the situation with that cop with his knee on the neck of George Floyd, I would have tackled the cop. I mean, that would have been instinctively what I would have done, because if no one else is stepping in, that's what I would have. My instinct says that's what I would have done. And he said back to me, he said, you know what, Ricky, you're white. You could have done that. But if I'd have done that, I'd have probably been shot. And he's probably right about that. I mean, in that moment, you see why the statistics prove this out, that if you're black in America, you're 2.5 times more, at least more likely is the word I'm looking for, to be killed by a cop than if you're white. And we've got to come to grips with that. There's a challenge in America. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. I mean, it doesn't matter if the city's run by a Republican leader or a Democrat leader. There can be a bad cop. Most cops are good cops. And one of the things that I see, frankly, is that you've got cops in some cases in communities that are actually joining in the protest. You've got, white and black people together joining arms. This is different, I think. Don't you sense something's different here this time?
Well, I do on a number of levels. One, you're absolutely right. The good people that I have seen, a police officer hugging a young African-American man that broke down in tears. There are officers kneeling in prayer. Now, the media is not helping. The vast majority of media, and I don't want to say the media because that's like all politicians are bad. When you say that, I used to say, whoa, wait a minute, there's a lot of great servants out there. But a lot of the media is not helping the way they're covering this almost. Well, I would just say it's not helping. But as Antifa has brought violence into the city, you have to deal with that. As a leader, I can tell you, you have to get command and control, and then you can sort out how do we go about talking to the good people. You've got to protect people's lives. People are being beaten severely. We have all seen it. If you've gone on social media, you see violence being perpetrated against innocent people who are trying to protect their businesses, people who are beaten, who are being attacked. I saw a man being attacked by what looked like hundreds as they just swarmed on top of him and beat him and kicked him in the face, and he was down, broken. I don't know how human beings can treat other human beings like that, but what you have to do, and what didn't occur in Minneapolis, what didn't occur in some of the cities, is command and control. And then say, now that we have command and control, when they can burn St. John's Church blocks from the White House that John Adams went to, and every president since John Adams has attended that church, when they burn that national monument down, you have to stop that. You just cannot let that type of lawlessness go on. It looked as if I think it was called the Night of the Long Knives, when the Nazis took over in the 1930s, and they were going through breaking the windows and burning torches, setting buildings on fire. This is America. We have to get command and control. Leadership now, I think, is being expressed by many of the mayors and police chiefs. And once we get it under control, there's a lot of work to be done after that.
Well, it's a bipartisan effort. It's an effort that's really focused on leadership at the local, regional, state, national level. It's private sector, it's public sector, it's nonprofit sector. It's everyone coming together, sort of like you guys did. You worked closely with Van Jones and the team on the criminal justice reform. Yeah. It's doable. Talk a little bit about that, and we'll take this to the end of this break, and we'll pick it up on the other side. But talk about that for a second.
A dear friend of mine, and we surprised a lot of people. We did a segment not long ago on COVID and how we bring the country together during that crisis. But Van is a wonderful guy. Now, we don't agree on everything, and when people say that, I used to wince a little bit, like, do you have to bring that up? But Van is a man of faith. He's a man that loves America. He wants to see this country do great things, and so I helped join with Donald Trump and a number of leaders in criminal justice reform, saying there are people in jail, there are people that need to be in prison, that are violent offenders, and there are people that we're just mad at, that may have committed a drug crime in the 1980s. We were locking everyone up. So Van and I were able to work together. It was one of the most rewarding things I have ever done. And if Van Jones and I and Donald Trump and others can work together, we can achieve other great things together.
Let's do this we'll close out this part of the conversation on the other side of the break. But this is Governor Phil Bryant, former governor of the state of Mississippi, and I having a conversation about the situation in America today. We'll be back after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to SuperTalkMSGulfCoast.com.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We've got Governor Phil Bryant, the former governor of the state of Mississippi, with us. And before we went to break, we were just talking about the situation, the very sad situation that is playing out in America today. And the need, as the governor pointed out, to sort of gain control of the situation, essentially get the violence under control, and then enable people to continue to protest safely and nonviolently, because there is a concern in America today, and it's something we need to acknowledge, and we need to begin to start to accept the reality of the situation we're in, and then start seeking solutions, because we'll find the solutions. We've done this before. It's a very complicated issue, and it's going to require all of us working together to find the solutions. But we can do this, can't we, Governor?
Absolutely. You know, one of the groups that I've been a part of for 20 years, probably since the 90s, Mission Mississippi. And it's reconciling the races to the body of Christ. And it is the best way. If we could duplicate that 10,000 times, if we could have everyone coming together, whites and blacks. Now, you've got to have the courage to speak openly. And that's the real key to Mission Mississippi. But your faith allows you to do that. So talk one to another, because you're absolutely right. The idea that we might understand and find solutions for the African-American community as two white guys, not going to happen. You've got to bring that community together, and both sides talk openly with the real desire to find solutions. There's nothing that I wanted more as governor of the state of Mississippi to help young African-American kids, boys and girls, that I saw in impoverished communities. I'm from the Mississippi Delta, and the dream one day of being able to say that won't happen anymore. I think back to when Bobby Kennedy came to the Delta, and you can go back to the Delta, and there's still areas just like that was in 1960. And so we've got to find solutions. I don't know that we have a lot of chances ahead of us to find solutions. If we don't, then what you see today will be the normal. It'll be a science fiction movie where it happens all the time. And I don't believe that's America, and I don't believe we're going to let that happen.
I don't think we're going to let it happen either. I think there are too many good, dedicated leaders. I think, again, it's going to take a bipartisan, it's going to take a multiracial, it's going to take leadership at every level of society to find the solutions, but I think we can.
Politics. Stop it's her fault. It's his fault. I can do a fundraiser about this. Whoever's going to politicize this needs to stay out of it.
I agree. So let's shift gears. Actually, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, now that you've been, not the governor now for a while, what do you miss most about it?
I miss the people. You literally, it is a difficult situation. Literally one day at noon, you're working that morning as governor, trying to achieve things, problem solving, and at noon, someone else takes that job. And you're gone. You're out of the house that you lived in. The people that you work with every day. It's a separation. So people that you love, the security becomes your family, staff, and you're pulled away from them. So you miss those people. But I miss achieving. You could come into the governor's office and say, we've got to get that port in Gulfport finished. And it was one of my tasks when I came in 8 years ago as governor. We've got to finish that port. It's just one of the things that we've got to do. We've got to do something about our educational system. I think 52% of the children were reading on the third grade level, 52%. So we said, we've got to fix that. And we could. So I miss being able to achieve big things. Now, I don't miss it that much. It is a tough, difficult job. Governor Reeves is doing an excellent job. Handling all of the challenges that are governors. Now, I hear people say, well, he's had so many things. There's never an easy day being governor. You talked about a tropical storm forming in the Gulf early, or maybe forming around Mexico headed to the Gulf. As soon as I heard that, I realized I was going to be at MEMA. I was going to be tracking that storm. We were going to be at a press conference saying, everyone get yourself prepared in the event that this occurs. So it is a difficult job. That the portion of it I miss is achievement and the family members that were our staff. But I'm delighted not to be governor anymore. 8 years is plenty. I used to tell people, if you want to do that more than 8 years, you need to see somebody about it.
Well, people should remember, you're right, there's not a restful day as governor, but people should remember that when you became governor, you still had a Katrina office that was open. There was still work in the Katrina aftermath, and you had to deal with other natural disasters that happened, and focus on the state budget and try to keep your agenda of economic development front and center. And man, there's a lot of competing interests. Mm-hmm.
It was, and if you remember, the first Republican National Convention was August of that year in 2012. I missed it because we had a hurricane on the coast. We had very little money in the rainy day fund. I think we probably invested as much money from Katrina as Governor Barber's administration. Now, he did a phenomenal job, but still there was so much work to be done with Katrina after Governor Barber left office, and we try to carry on his legacy of success there and what you were able to do, what everyone was able to do. And now this weekend, Deborah and I were on the Gulf Coast, and it is just beautiful.
Man,
absolutely gorgeous. And I'm so happy to be able to take a couple of days off and go down.
What I often talk about is that resiliency is in our DNA in Mississippi, that Katrina taught us that we can dig deep. We can do things we never thought we could do. The fact that we could come out the day after Katrina and see our world obliterated and realize ultimately that buildings that make a community, the people do, and it's with the people and the people coming together that we'd rebuild this community. And look at it today. It's truly remarkable what we've been able to accomplish. And it's a great reminder that in this COVID moment and even in this sad America moment, that we can find hope and we can find future, and we'll do it. I mean, we Americans, we can do this, and as Mississippians, certainly we can do this.
That remarkable place that we just call the coast. All my life, I remember the first time I went down. Dad drove us down, probably in 1964 or so, and we all got sunburned on the beach. But that's the first time I had ever seen an ocean. Probably 10 years old, I had never seen an ocean, and a real ocean. And there it was on the Gulf Coast. So I've been there all my life as a tourist, like most people driving in. But this weekend, I'm just as excited. If you think about one end of it, NASA, as we saw for the first time in 11 years, men go back into outer space on a vehicle built by Americans for Americans. So NASA did a lot of that testing from Apollo to the space shuttle engines. So we have a NASA facility there that's helping send man into Mars. On the other end is Ingalls. has built 70% of the Navy's warships that are under sail today. And in between some of the most beautiful white beaches, the destination locations that you have up and down that beach with its casino resorts, that's just not a better place in the world. And all I've got to do is drive from Allen, Mississippi, down 49, and there I am.
Well, look, I often talk about Stennis and Ingalls being the bookends. Yeah. And in between, there's just a hell of a story to tell about, the culture and the collection of communities that make up coastal Mississippi, and then the casinos and the marketing and, additional amenities that they bring to the table. We have a competitive advantage for the rest of the world, in my opinion. We've opened up our casinos. So far, so good as it relates to that. You can go on the beach and you can space out and live in a, socially distant sort of way. If we do this right and we don't have an outbreak and we continue to stay focused on making this an enjoyable, visit for people, even in this COVID environment, we're gonna recover faster, I think, than most tourist areas are able to recover. Don't you see that as well?
And I brought so many conventions, from the state auditors conventions to governors meetings to education commission of the states, all to the Gulf Coast. Every time I'd get into an organization, first thing I'd do is, how do I put in a bid for a convention? And it never failed. Everyone that came said, I had no idea it was this beautiful. When Ivanka Trump came down to do an early childhood meeting, she said, I had no idea you had all of this down here. We are the biggest surprise coast of any place in America. And I love to see that response from people. Just this weekend, Deborah and I were able to go down. We came in Friday afternoon and went to Bay St. Louis. Wow, what an amazing, the Bay's always been great, but now it is it's one of the most beautiful seaside cities in America. We went to the little restaurant there, the Blind Tiger, and had some wonderful food, came back to the White House, spent the night, enjoyed the sun. I had a great run. Then we went to Ocean Springs that evening and had dinner with some of our friends, and came back on Saturday. Then we can make church on Sunday morning. But just that respite, that Friday evening from Bay St. Louis, seeing the Gulf Coast, White House, dinner in Ocean Springs, we were good. Our batteries.
This is Governor Bill Bryant, the former governor of the state of Mississippi. We're going to continue the conversation about Mississippi's incredible competitive advantage during this COVID environment when we come back from the break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. I've got Governor Phil Bryant, the former governor of the state of Mississippi. And in the last segment, we were looking back. And I think the first thing you said when I said, what do you miss most? You said the people. There's a lot of aggravation that comes with being governor. Very few, restful nights. But I can see you. I can see you missing the people. I bet you love to just get out and about and just shake people's hands and hug them and just touch fellow Mississippians. That was a big part of your job, wasn't it?
It was so rewarding because we have such wonderful people. I tell people, CEOs used to come in when I was recruiting businesses, and the first thing they'd say is, you have really nice people here. And I go, yeah, I know. They'd say, oh, they talk to me. They say good morning everywhere I go. And the guy in the elevator was talking to me. And the next guy would come in and go, you really got wonderful people. And I go, yeah, I know. Well, finally, I realized not everybody has such wonderful people. So when they'd come, I'd go, we have really wonderful people here. And they go, I know what it's at. But it is the secret sauce of Mississippi. And it doesn't matter what region you're in, if they're African-American, white, our Native American population, which I love so much in Philadelphia, the great Neshoba County Fair over there. They're just wonderful people. I believe that comes from our spiritual upbringing. So many of us started as soon as we could remember in Sunday school and church, and our mothers were telling us to sit still. But I think that all comes from that faith-based life that we had. But you're absolutely right. They're just the greatest people in America. And I'm just biased, but I just truly believe they're wonderful.
Well, we've seen it over and over again. As I said in the past segment, buildings don't make a community. The people do. We learned that after Katrina, that we are the ability to dig deep and help each other. And it cut across racial lines. When we get tough, when the going gets tough in America and in Mississippi, people come out and help each other. And, if you look at the national research that's been done on this, year after year after year, Mississippi is like 1, 2, or 3 on the list for being the most generous state in the nation. Right. So we've got a lot to love about this state, and hopefully that what's at the heart of this state is what gets us through this tough stretch that we're in now. Not just COVID, but this essential, America's sadness that we're dealing with now. One other, did you have something you wanted to point out? Go ahead.
Proud of the people that's COVID. I think you've seen us work individually and comply with what we think are the best practices in the leadership of Governor Reeves and others. And Delbert Hoseman's doing a phenomenal job as Lieutenant Governor. Speaker Gunn, I want to make sure I talk about all of them. But it's the individual. It is those of us that live in the country, that go to Walmart and distance ourselves, and put our mask on at the respect of others, the people that work there, making sure that I respect them. I'm not always the perfect one to comply with that, but I try out of respect of others. But managing that, and now you don't see riots in downtown Jackson. So we are different. We are friends. I'm from the Delta, many friends up there, and to realize again the Delta has become a tourist destination is fairly remarkable. B.B. King Museum, which is phenomenal. The Blues Trail. We talked about Steve Azar and the Kingsmen earlier. The Delta is a very mystic place. That's all the way I can describe it.
It is. Listen, as you know, I have a place up outside of Greenwood, between Greenwood and Black Hawk, and I spend a lot of time up there. And I find race relations to be, incredible there for the most part. And, I've really enjoyed getting to know, for example, the history of Robert Johnson, which, he's supposedly one of 3 burial sites, maybe the official burial site right outside of Greenwood.
By the way, from Combahee County. He was born in Combahee County.
Right. So, it's so incredible seeing that Blues Trail and the evolution of that. You have worked extremely hard. You worked extremely hard in your administration to really bring that along. C-Ray has been so dedicated to that. Talk about the emergence of the Blues Trail as such an important part of our history.
I think it probably started a decade or so ago when we actually got involved, and I was Lieutenant Governor. Governor Barber was in, but we realized that the world loves the blues. I mean, if you look, there was a little band opening for B.B. King in the 60s, and when he played England, they were called the Beatles. And they opened for B.B. King. And so we realized Robert Johnson, who was the father of the blues, began it there at the Crossroads, if you believe that legend. But we had not capitalized on it. So we created the Blues Trail. We started putting up markers where people could go and actually find out where this really occurred. When I opened the B.B. King Museum, I remember meeting a couple from Germany that was there on their honeymoon. And I remember talking to him and saying, "You romantic devil, you brought this young lady all the way to Indianola, Mississippi on your honeymoon from Germany." But they wanted to come and see. As I was there the day that we laid B.B. King to rest, realizing that the king, this great man, was being laid to rest there at his museum in Indianola, Mississippi, the Grammy Museum. My goodness, there's one in Los Angeles and one there in Cleveland. So, what a perfect association those two have in common. But yeah, those areas are just phenomenal. But over in Tupelo, what a great job they've done of capitalizing on the birthplace of Elvis Presley there. That's what we call it, the birthplace of America's music. Not long ago, I was with Jerry Lee Lewis in his home. with Marty Stewart and Steve Azar and others celebrating the great life of Jerry Lee Lewis there at Nesbitt, Mississippi. So what happened in the States just absolutely phenomenal. I don't think it was an accident that all those great stars and all the genre of America's music started in this one state called Mississippi.
You actually named Steve Azar the Culture and Music Ambassador for the state. And I've actually posted One Mississippi, a song that Steve wrote at your request. I posted it at the SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page so you can go see it. But that song captures so much of what makes Mississippi so great. Tell me about that.
Well, Steve and I got to be friends. He came back to the Delta and we met, and he talked about his love for the Delta and the music and the blues and country and western music. And so he came to the mansion one morning and I said, Steve, we need a song. We need something that people can cling to and enjoy, and it describes Mississippi. And he was sitting there in the conference room as we were having coffee that morning. And I said, something that everybody already knows, so it is. And I said, like One Mississippi, if you ever in the backyard playing football, everybody knows that's the count. One Mississippi, two Mississippi, and I've heard it called out in NFL games. So everyone knows that's a second. A second is a one Mississippi in the world. So I was just talking to him about that, and he said, well, that's good. The next morning he called and left on my voicemail the song he had written that night on One Mississippi. And that's the genius of Steve Azar. So we went over to a little recording studio in Meridian, Mississippi, birthplace of the father of country music, Jimmy Rogers. And Steve recorded that song day and let me sit in. And it is just, I hope, and I told him it's something that I want students to be able to sing in their schools and to remember the catchy tune. It's a great song, and I think a new voice from Mississippi.
Yeah, I love the documentary Something in the Water with the Kingsmen that used to back up B.B. King coming together with Steve Azar to do his most recent album. But it does capture, it's interesting. When I talked to Steve, we had this part of the conversation that sort of this B.B. King and his team around him, sort of these old school blues musicians coming together with sort of the new wave of musicians and making sure there's cross-pollination of the genres. And it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts Steve's music as he goes forward. I know you're thinking that as well.
Oh, I think the best is yet to come. You've said that of Steve Azar. Yeah. Look at the young blues artists that are coming up. Saw one just the other day nominated for a Grammy Award. I don't keep up with it as much as I should, but still those great musicians, blues. Look at just the show America's Got Talent or The Voice just the other day. Mississippian from Meridian, Mississippi, won that talent show. What a remarkable, a pastor came in and won that. So, I think talent, music flows through all of our bloodstreams. I didn't get a whole lot of it. My brother's an entertainer, a guitar player, musician, so every family has one, and it's just part of our DNA. Thank goodness.
I played drums my whole life and banged on the piano a little bit. But my wife tells me all the time, stop banging on the steering wheel. She's always pulling me back.
I envy you. I'm so jealous of the guys that just have that talent. And there's not, anybody, you can talk to anybody and they'll go, yeah, my brother, my father, my son, somebody plays musicians. It plays in a band. Somebody's a musician, and that is again just phenomenal. I don't think people understand what we have in Mississippi. Mick Jagger came to the mansion one night. They were making the Get On Up movie, the biopic of James Brown, and he looked at my desk, and behind it was a picture of me and B.B. King, and he said, "You know B.B. King?" And I said, "Yeah, I've known B.B. a long time." He said, "If it wasn't for B.B. King, there wouldn't be a Rolling Stones."
Wow, isn't that incredible?
Impact that man has had.
So this is Governor Phil Bryant, the former governor of the state of Mississippi, and we're just talking about this amazing state we live in. We'll be back after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, "Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast."
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We've got Governor Phil Bryant, the former governor of Mississippi, with us. Governor, I'm actually in my fishing closet. It's a fishing and outdoors room in my house. And the reason I'm here is because I have to be plugged into the modem. I can't be in my office. You know, Wi-Fi was not built for everyone to be at home at the same time. So in order to make this show work in a remote way, I had to plug in. But as I look around this room, it reminds me that we have some of the best fishing, some of the most incredible natural resources, not just in coastal Mississippi, but across the state. Man, do we have an amazing place from a natural resource point of view?
Absolutely. And being an outdoorsman, I feel sorry for people that don't get to see that, Ricky, that don't get out in the woods. You know, there's nothing better than early in the morning trying to make your way to a stand when you're deer hunting, or be there in the Delta when I've seen ice form on the water. I remember out there duck hunting and the wind blew and I literally saw the water freeze over. And then to hear those greenheads coming in, I feel sorry for people that's never seen that day or be on that water out there. I love it when we get out there and the redfish are and the trout's running and you just get into them. There's nothing better than that. Yeah, this is an outdoor paradise around and generates a lot of revenue. I mean, if you look at all of the people who hunt and fish and are out there every day and coming to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, I was at Bay St. Louis the other day and noticing all the boats. We've been trying to plan a fishing trip. We were hoping to do it this Thursday and Friday, but not sure the weather's going to cooperate. But we can't wait to get out on the water again. I love it.
Yeah, and then seafood.
Oh,
I mean,
I had oysters Saturday evening. And look, we've been working on the blue economy we started that about 7 years ago. And I realized just how important that water was. But I always say it's from the blue sky to the bottom of the ocean and they can have the rest of it. That's all we want. But yeah, bringing seafood back, bringing the oysters back has been such a heavy lift. Our oyster council gave us a great head start. But we're defined a lot by our food. And if you can't find something good to eat on the Gulf Coast, you're just not looking.
That's what made the Bonnie Carey Spillway so difficult to get your head around, because it was not a naturally, the Mississippi River would not naturally flow into the Mississippi Sound. Mississippi Sound was this estuarian, this really unique estuarian place where seafood thrived. Oysters and shrimp and all the fish that come with that, but unfortunately we've got this situation we've had to deal with, and we'll find a solution eventually. But it's been tough to watch that play out when we shouldn't have to deal with it.
No, it's got to stop. And let me tell you, it has really changed. When I was a kid, I remember that sign, seafood capital of the world, and we still have a lot of wonderful shrimp and oysters, but not nearly what we had. And the majority of it is that fresh water coming in from the Bonnie Carey Spillway and killing the Gulf Coast. And it's got to stop. And then we've gone all the way to Washington, D.C. We're fighting it, continues to fight, but that has to stop. You cannot destroy an entire Gulf and that entire region because you're afraid to put water somewhere else. So, yeah, that struggle goes on, and the blue economy is still strong. And I love all of our great seafood. They were talking about a fresh snapper at the restaurant the other day. So when you can get something that's brought in and you get to enjoy it that evening, doesn't get any better than that.
Hey, so Governor, cruising the coast, but before we go there, I just want to say you sold your Harley. Thank God you did it before you got hurt.
That's right. Gave all the money to the wounded warriors. So, I made a little deal with the Lord. If I didn't get hurt, I'd do that. And so the wounded warriors benefit from selling that Harley of mine. But we used to, for about 6 or 7 years, we'd leave Jackson, ride to Gulfport, go to the pavilion there at Jones Park, have lunch. I think last time we had 600 riders who raised about $50,000 for the wounded warriors of Mississippi. And then I did the Home of Grace at remarkable home there on the Mississippi Gulf Coast has saved so many lives trapped in the cycle of addiction. So we would ride from there to the Trent Lot airport to the First Baptist Church in Gulfport and raised a lot of money for Home of Grace. And I'll miss those things. But I hope I'll continue to be able to bring my 55 Chevrolet Nomad. If Pete doesn't sell it one day, he wants to get it in there and sell it back to the Cruising the Coast, which I love so much.
Yeah, Cruising the Coast is a really special moment, and it continues to grow. And I understand why. I mean, where else in America can you take a drive down the beach in with an unencumbered view south with a live oak lined highway that came back after Katrina? Some people worried that wouldn't happen, but those oaks are tough, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Just like the people down there, they're resilient and friendly. Yeah, but it's a real cruise. I mean, you get to cruise. You cruise down to Bay St. Louis, and I think even further down to Pascagoula, but Ocean Spring. So, yeah, I think it's the largest cruise in America. I certainly know it's the best. And Woody Bailey's done a remarkable job. We talked earlier. I went to the first one, and Fabian and Frankie Avalon was playing at the Coast Coliseum. There were about maybe 400 people there, and I thought, this will never work. And Woody hung on, and people came together. And now, my goodness, what a national phenomenon Cruising the Coast is for us car folks.
Well, Governor, we're out of time, but when we come back together again, we will come back together relatively soon and just kind of talk about the situation. I want to talk more about your economic development gig that you're involved in today. There's a lot we didn't have a chance to talk about, but I think for the sake of Mississippi, we talked about some of the really important stuff, and I really appreciate your leadership, and thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you for this, but Ricky, thank you for what you've done for the Gulf Coast. So you were there at the time we needed you most, and just God bless you for what you did and what you are.
Thank you. I appreciate it, buddy. Take care and have a great day.
Let's go have fun on the coast.
Subscribe for free to the Coast Vue podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.